Hi, and welcome to Comics from the Ark for the week of June 19th, 2024. Devin and Jeff back here to discuss comics, pop culture, and whatever will come across our oh-so-warped minds. That said, what did you read this week?
I actually went with a trade paperback that came out that I just got in. It's written by Dee Snider. It's called "He's Not Going to Take It," and it's really just kind of the story of how his life led him to the point where he was in front of Congress, basically defending free speech. And going up against the was it PMRC?
Something like that.
Yeah. And then of course, they do a really good job. There's some multi-page things where it's like him versus Tipper going back and forth. And he makes a comment toward the very end, and I don't think he realized, well, maybe he does, but it doesn't feel like it from the way he says it in the comic book. He basically says that, he got home from that hearing and then saw what they did to him on the news, which was really crucifying because they were mixing and matching, you know how news does, to make him look as worse as possible, and it was actually taking stuff from, they were showing him reacting to stuff that was said during other people's testimony and stuff like that, and making him look bad.
Right.
Well, and he automatically, thought, well, that's it, I lose, and then there was, don't get me wrong, there was some backlash at that point and all kinds of problems that formed, but he goes in to explain how once the internet came to be, and you started having sites where you could promote ideas and things like that for more of a free flow of information and ideas, he saw his original tapes showing up, where they could be seen and people really speaking out, about how great that was. And going back to what I was saying is, I don't think he realized that a lot of us at that time were watching this really closely, especially people my age. Because, this was... No, I wasn't in my, earning my own wages part of my life like he was at this point,
Right.
post school, getting established, and at the point he sat in front of Congress, multi-plat, but me as a preteen / early teen child watching this and realizing that this was going to shape a lot of my future, because it's going to shape what music I can listen to, what video games I could play, what toys I could get, what was going to be on my news channels. How far does it reach once something is deemed inappropriate? It's the same reason that I vehemently am against any type of book banning or burning, is because all the information should be made available, period.
Right. Maybe we should also go back and explain for those not familiar or may have forgotten. At the time, Tipper Gore was Al Gore's wife,
Yep.
and she was on a crusade to censor music. And
It was beyond music, though.
well, not, but there were things that she really took a crusade for.
Yeah.
And she was looking out, and one of the topics was the messages in music. It also is what led to the warning labels to be on CDs and albums.
And what was interesting about it is they specifically targeted Twisted Sister's "We're Not Gonna Take It" as being one of the songs that I can't remember what they called the list, but it was basically the parents group list, and
it was the epitome of.
It was basically saying, for violence and this and that, and when in all actuality, and he brings it up so eloquently in his testimony in front of Congress, that there is no violence there. All it is saying that we, as a collective, need to make a decision as each individual to not let other people change who we are.
And if you're not familiar, pause this video and watch that video because it's amazing. But
it's actually something interesting about that video. Is one of the very first times they had a kind of theatrical lead in, and MTV was actually really against airing the video because of that, because they were like, well, this doesn't really, this isn't going to play. This isn't going to catch the attention.
I thought the Thriller video was more of that.
Well, you got to remember that was still some music and stuff, whereas the theatrical interest of this was, if I remember right, is the child sitting on a bed and the father's just like laying into the kid.
Yeah.
And
what do you want to do with your life?
Yeah, but there's no music, no nothing. It is literally just a theatrical entrance. It's not even like West Side Story snapping your fingers down the street type stuff, and so yet again, it's another place where he really showed, from an early age, the type of stuff that was, pushing him forward to become what he did become, as not only part of Twisted Sister, but as Dee Snider, the individual as well. Because in my eyes, he went up so many notches that day. Because I got to see him sit down and speak eloquently and with, conviction and, bringing the facts to bear and making the, at the time, the moral majority conservatives realize, not everything that you want is exactly what everybody in the nation wants.
Well, and he made them look so stupid.
Oh, God, yes.
Because she was talking about all the violence in the song, and again, he went through the lyrics, and there's no mention of violence, no any type of rebellious type of, rebellion in the fact that, we're going to stand up for our rights, but it wasn't anything like you must fight the power. It didn't call. It wasn't a call to arms. There you go. But the video, Dee Snider compared it to the old Roadrunner Coyote cartoons, and even flipping through there, he points out that anytime the antagonist gets injured or fails to stop them, not only is he not injured, he sits up, shows that he's unharmed, shakes his head, and moves on. So not only is his ineptitude what's causing him to get into these situations, but then he's not even harmed by it, and he moves on. There's even a scene in the video where he swings on a rope and hits the side of a house, and you see all the slats or the siding kind of pop out comically. Again, it wasn't like a real to form injury.
Yeah.
And so he lays this out, and Tipper Gore, looking like she smelled a horrible fart, was just sitting there getting schooled. And again, you pointed out that he did it so eloquently. I did watch a special, I want to say in the early 2000s, VH1 had put out a movie based on this. And he actually talked about how after the congressional hearing, he actually lost quite a bit of his fan base because he, originally they're like, the hard rocker, he's just like, damn the man. But then he got up there and so eloquently, stated his fight. He lost some of that rebellious appeal to that group of fans.
Yes. Well, but at the same time, part of the fan that he thought he lost, and he brings it up in this trade as well, he didn't actually lose.
No.
my parents were both educators. All right. Don't get me wrong. They were mostly free speech, oriented, but there was definitely places where they started drawing the line on things, and so having somebody speak up for me was important, but at the same time, I had to listen to it, in my headphones, on my Sony Walkman, or once I got, more than a block from the house, I could, finally crank my stereo up or something like that, because it's not something I would show to my parents or to any other figure of authority, because at that point it became a very heated topic.
Right.
And coming from small town America, it got even more so. I mean, we're broadcasting this whole thing out of a town of about the same of my hometown, which is well under 1,000. And let me tell you,
But what was also
the McCarthyism is strong in 1980s small town America. So,
but what really helped was not only how well he had put it, was that you had Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, you had Frank Zappa, and John Denver.
well, the John Denver one was the greatest one, because they brought him in thinking he was going to be a friendly witness, and he turned into almost a hostile witness, talking about Rocky Mountain High.
Right. Which, he was talking about the sheer exhilaration about, just fresh air out in the wilderness and that natural endorphin rush.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually had been censored in a lot of southern stations because they were taking it as he was getting high.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, ironically, Denver's now known for the getting high part. But
yeah, exactly. And that's what I really liked about this trade, was not only did we get to see, a really great, what I thought was well drawn breakdown of the testimony itself and the exchange between him and Chipper, and like really showing they really brought the emotion forward. And there was a few times where he would try to explain, there's the one part where he's like, if looks could have killed, and they literally go through the rest of the page showing, what it felt like with the way he was being stared at for his response.
Right.
It's wonderfully done. Dee Snider, there's times I've loved him, there's times I've hated him. There's stuff I agree with him on. There's stuff I disagree with him on. But at the end of the day, I think he is the epitome of what makes America America, in the fact that he defends the right to be free. And that's really what it is. And he's brought up in the past. He's made conservatives mad. He's made liberals mad. He makes everybody mad because he's a moderate that believes in freedom. So,
right.
And for that reason, I will probably forever respect him for that.
I can work with that. What's the price point on the trade?
Price point on it wasn't bad. I'm pretty sure it was sub 20. And it's a pretty good book. No, I was wrong. My apologies. $24.99. But it's Z2. It's well done. The art's really nice. I love the cover on it. Let me tell you, they definitely took some superhero look there for D on the cover. And if you ever listen to this, D, I love that you can see yourself that way still, man.
Rock on.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% respect you, and I will respect even the stuff that I disagree with you about.
Well, and then you could. So then the next question I have to ask is: this all happened in 1985.
Yeah.
So why is the trade paperback coming out now?
All right. Well, you've had a lot of things that have happened through the years,
Right.
basically. Um, First and foremost, let's take a look at the fact we're within a year of a milestone of it happening.
The 40th invert.
Yeah, 40th.
damn.
Yeah, 40th anniversary of it. Yeah, God, it's a long time. So number one, number two, as the internet further proliferates knowledge out to the general public, and don't get me wrong, now it's getting real scary with the AI thing, but if you take the time to find the original hearings and stuff, even your millennials are grabbing on to what he stands for and stuff. I don't know if you've kind of seen this thing where supposedly there's a millennial Gen X connection somehow. I don't understand how it all works out, but basically it's kind of a following in footsteps type thing.
Well, they say like every 20 years,
Yeah.
history has a way of returning or repeating itself.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 90s, they, were getting back to 70s clothing and what have you. And
Yeah.
I remember in the 80s, everybody looked fondly back to the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to bring back some of those elements. So it's kind of like, after you go an entire generation, which would be 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
then you start to see nostalgia and a lot of the same talking points popping back up again.
Well, and another thing that's happened, there's been a few things recently that has happened that brought specifically Twisted Sister and We're Not Going to Take It back in the spotlight. One of it being the I can't remember if it was the 2016 or 2020 election. There was some Trump rallies where they were using the song, and Snyder came up and said, like, you stop doing that. No, I am not represented by you, and laid into it and used some pretty heavy terminology against anybody that followed Trump at the time, which I could have, at the time, it's not that I was, Trump, but it's like I'm looking at it going, kind of lesser of the two evils, but but at the same time, I completely understood where he's coming from, and I would hope that he would feel the same way no matter who was using it, because for him, that's his anthem.
Well,
not somebody else's.
Bruce Springsteen stepped up when Reagan was trying to use "Born in the USA."
Yeah. Well, what was even messed up about that one was how stupid are you when you don't understand the song you're using? Born in the USA is not a patriotic song.
Well,
really.
In the standpoint that it's saying that we need to question, reevaluate, and then, here's what's wrong.
It was a flat out slam against the United States in general, and the fact of how we were treating specific segments of our veteran population and taking care of the problems with.
Well, and when you say supporting veterans would be a very patriotic stance.
Yeah.
So it was patriotic, but not in the standpoint that Reagan was going at it from. He was like, the U.S. is the major power. No, the people that fought for this nation are the power.
Well, and what they talk about in the Born in the USA is not even. It goes so much deeper. It gets into a lot of Vietnam politics, and it's not a pleasant look at us, really.
No, but if you're being honest, that's a good place to start.
Oh, it absolutely is. Don't misunderstand me. But like I said, I respect the fact that he didn't want to use and everything like that. And so that kind of brought it up a little bit. And then, of course, I'm not sure if it was about the same time or before or after, they did a absolutely incredible re-release of the song with just him and a piano. Like, it is absolutely amazing. it slows it down just a touch, but it's still that.
Has a power behind it
Yeah.
because of it.
Well, it's
Strip it down.
yeah, the way that he describes it in the trade paperback is the fire that was lit underneath him that continues to drive him every day. And he talks about the different people that lit different parts of that fire, whether it be his father, coming down on him, whether it be the grandfather that he roommated with for a little bit, that gave him advice and told him, you never stop, you always go, type situation, and so all of that plays together and gets you to that point.
I do want to add 2 points. First of all, there's also his Christmas album where he does "Come All Ye Faithful" to the tune of "We're Not Gonna Take It," and I have to say that that's also an amazing rendition.
Yeah, well, his voice is absolutely incredible.
But also,
there's always whenever you hear him sing, there is just a true passion behind it.
The other thing that I would like to point out is the whole cancel culture going on. You may not agree with a person or their stance or anything, but the whole cancel culture where we're just not even letting those people talk anymore. That's not right either.
Yeah.
They may be in the wrong, don't get me wrong, but every person, you have the right to hear both sides.
Yeah. Well, and he said, like, at the very end of the trade paperback, he actually makes a comment, not a comment toward it, but there's a big list of, kind of talking about, where he is, that talks directly toward that, and the fact that he's like, it's time to stop being told what an American is and for each person to decide what an American is. Because it's up to each person to decide what an American should be to that person. Does that mean that you are supposed to, open your own business and be, an entrepreneur and, follow, the quote unquote American dream? Does it mean that you, go the route of Dee Snider and you pursue your dream at all costs, to make sure that you become exactly what you wanted to be? In his case, he wanted to be a rock and roll star. That figured out singing when he finally got into the right band and everything, Or do you think it's doing a 9 to 5? Whatever it is you feel being a true American is, that's up to you to decide. It's not up to somebody else to tell you what it is to be American.
So it's something that we can still learn from.
Yeah.
And it's valid now as it was then.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think there's, while he definitively crushes conservative America in the trade, he also, I feel, does the same thing to liberal America as well, and for the same exact reason, because he brings up a few times in there things that kind of feel like he's really taking pretty hard jabs at cancel culture itself. Because it is an elimination of free speech. And
again, the most I've always heard it was with comic books, and they always say, vote with your wallet, And, cancel culture is a little of that, If you literally aren't buying it, you're speaking your mind,
Yeah,
but you're not forcing the other person to stop. You're just not going to support them.
Yeah.
While they do it.
Yeah, it's like seeing a product that you don't like the way that, let's say,
Coca-Cola.
Well, not even that. We'll say, Joker brand,
Well, I was going more with the whiteness of Coca-Cola.
Yeah. But that, or I mean, hell, Tide Pods. I mean, they took a hit because people were dumb enough to eat them. I don't understand this. But regardless of what the item is, if you have a group of people that come out, for example, like what he talks about in here with the parents group, that is trying to specifically censor anything that's wrong. If, as a populace, we see something we dislike and we don't necessarily through peer pressure or anything like that make everybody around us do the same thing, but we exactly do what you said. We stop buying that product and we start buying a different product, and that is what stops them. That's not cancel culture. That is
Capitalism.
yeah, it's capitalism. It's business. You gotta know who you're selling to.
Right.
So it's a fine distinction. It's a little gray area there, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But anyway, did enjoy it. Highly would recommend it. I thought the art was good. It was simplistic. The story I thought was really great. It felt like reading the background information from Dazed and Confused or something like that, because he grew up in the 60s and 70s,
right?
And I think he graduated, and I think it was saying like 73 or 71 or something like that,
along with Mick Foley and Kevin James.
Yeah. Yep.
They all went to school together. Kevin James and Mick Foley were on the same high school wrestling team.
That's awesome. I didn't get cool entrances when I was wrestling. Anyway,
I know. I know. Anything else that you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, recommend the book, recommend the art.
If this was the Academy, the exit music would have played about a half hour ago.
No, well, and really what it came down to, like I said, there's enough in it that I can't say enough good things about it, even though I don't agree with everything there. I agree with the overarching ideal of be free.
Well, and how's the old saying go? I disagree with what you said, but I'll defend to my death your ability to say it, or something like that.
Well, basically, yeah, and or a better way that I think to put it is, going back to another pop culture reference, talk hard. I was a huge Pump Up the Volume fan, and that was one of the big things out of that was, talk hard. And what does that mean? It means you have the talks that are hard. You go out there and you say the things that need to be said, regardless of how hard it is to say it,
Right.
And you do the right thing in doing so. And sometimes doing the right thing is not the easy thing.
Often it isn't.
Exactly. And that's and yet again, another thing from right around this time period that really pushed home, to me, you got to speak your mind. You got to let people know what's going on. If you see injustices start happening, for example, the cancel culture and stuff like that, you don't ever lay down, and you never quit. You keep trying until the very end, until they shut you down. And that's what my generation kind of grew up on.
I'm reminded of Tim Allen in Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Never give up.
Right.
Never surrender.
Oh God! If I was a character in that movie, though, I'd want to be. Oh, what was the one that was the engineer?
Oh, Tony Shalhoub's character.
Yeah, that just took it with like complete ease. Just like,
oh my God!
Yeah. Just like, yeah,
Yeah.
Good movie. Anyway, what do you got for us today, Jeff?
Well, I don't have as many talking points as you, but I read Invincible Iron Man number 19. Okay. It's kind of wrapping up the series so far. Had mostly focused on Tony and Fei Long, and we kind of led into the whole Fall of X type of stuff, with Orcus and what have you. During the entire storyline leading up to this, Rhodey was in jail because he was helping Tony out, and he got caught doing something illegal.
Yeah.
But he was basically ran through a kangaroo court and thrown into an Orcus ran prison where they were trying to kill him and they were trying to, you know, attack Tony through having Rhodey in prison like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony had used some PIM particles and gave him a decommissioned, older version of the War Machine suit. It's like, in case of emergency, you have this, and stuck it into him. Well, during all of the fallout of everything going down, Rhodey did escape from jail. He got support from a couple of supervillains that were in there who realized that he was, you know, an average Joe trying to do the right thing, and they could respect that. Anyway, this takes place before X-Men 35 and the fall of House of X number 4 or 5 or whatever. So, you know,
But
the storyline ended, but they weren't quite done telling this story.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Because this isn't fall, nor is it Blood Hunt, right?
Right.
Okay.
So anyway, it's kind of like at the height of the war against all the Stark Sentinels, and War Machine was trying to gather up people to help fight. Well, all the heroes were already kind of doing their own thing, and there was more help needed. So he went to the bar with no name and sought out help. And so there's that moment. I did find it. There were a couple of cute little humorous notes. Since it was an older War Machine suit, there's apparently a freshen up program where you could like hit a button and say, you know, I need to freshen up.
Yeah.
Well, when he steps out of the armor, he comes out with the '90s eraser head haircut with like
the Kid and Play haircut.
Nice. Not as tall, but you know, it was flat, It was rounded, and then he had the stripes on the side. And he looked at the mirror at the bar and he's like, I haven't updated this in a while. And then he was even talking about like, God, I haven't updated this since Arsenio Hall was the king of late night.
Yeah. Wasn't it Kid that had the eraser haircut?
I
Sorry,
think so.
I was just trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it was Kid.
It was good.
Yep.
And so, you know, there were some moments like that, and Rhodey confronts Tony, and he said, "You left me in prison." And Tony's like, "Hey, man, it wasn't all ticker tape parades and vacations for me either." And then Rhodey looks down at the ground, and there's a newspaper article where it showed him and Emma ice skating for the public, and he's like, "Well, really?"
On the rope for a
He's
second.
like, "Where do you want it?" And Tony's like, "Anywhere but just not the face." And sure enough, Rhodey cold cocks him right across the face. And then, you know, Tony's like, "Well, hey, what's with the hair?" And it's like, the freshen up protocol needs updated. And Tony starts chuckling and he's like, hey. If you had been in here, it would have given you a perm. And looking back, yeah, around that issue 290, 300 of Iron Man, Tony did have a perm. I mean, he had a mullet perm. It was horrible. So anyway, this was just kind of
That's awesome.
There were nice little humorous notes. There were plenty of action beats. The art's solid. It's a $3.99 book, so you know they didn't.
At least we're down a little bit. Well, by the way, in speaking on the $3.99 from the last time we talked, where we said that $9.99, that's just getting you ready to accept $4.99 on the regular. Guess what this next week's was?
$4.99.
$4.99.
So anyway, you know, it was a solid book. It did a little bit of housekeeping. It the thing when you have a company-wide crossover event or a storyline that's so major, you know, not everybody's pacing can be, you know, shoehorned into the time frame by the end of the miniseries or the event or whatever. And this was one of those ones where they said this takes place prior to blah blah blah.
Which is probably why with Blood Hunt they've fired up a lot of one shots or miniseries.
Let people kind of recoup and get caught up, and then we can go into this.
Yeah, because I was noticing, like, I started when I was racking the Blood Hunt stuff the other day. There's like 5 or 6 already just unique titles that already have a similar title on mainline anyway.
Right.
But they're doing a mini series instead of putting it into the main books.
And I have to say that I read the most recent issue of Blood Hunt was 3, and I have to say that I even spent the extra dollar to get the red band variant or the red band version with the extra gore and what have you, and there wasn't a lot of whole gore in there to begin with, so I could only imagine what the regular one was like.
It's probably a bunch of my Little Ponies.
And story wise, it was a lot of talking and like, okay, we're gonna break up into teams. You do this, I do this, and you do that, and really, it didn't have a whole lot of action, didn't have a whole lot of gore, and it kind of, like I know that this stuff has to happen for the story to make sense, but they took an entire issue to do it, and it's like, okay,
It'd be great if they like spent an entire issue with just all dialogue and the gore at the end, and somebody gets a really really bad splinter.
if Brian Michael Bendis wrote this, it'd just be captions of heads going back and forth,
Yeah.
and then at the end, someone would be like, "Motherfucker!"
Yeah.
Got a paper cut, and then have like all this blood gushing all over the place.
Yeah, basically.
So I mean, it was a solid issue. It had some fun moments. It had decent art. It was the right price point. It's not going to go down in the annals of history as being, the Iron Man book of all time, but it was
Yeah.
a solid piece of work. And anymore, when we are just jumping from event to event to event to crossover, it was nice to have just a normal, self-contained story doing its thing.
Yeah. I'm just waiting to see a book that's like, God's Blood Hunt and like two other things on it. I mean,
Gods during the Blood Hunt of the Fall of X,
God.
and still have it be a Secret Wars tie-in somehow.
And I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe that God's thing is done because I'd stop reading it to be quite honest. And yep, sure as hell, another one came in not too long ago, and
Oh, there was foreshadowing since this volume of Iron Man is being written as kind of Tony recollecting, like he's doing his autobiography. He does foreshadow that a team will come about this from this, that Rhodey is going to start up, and it was kind of a second chance Avengers team.
kind of like Avengers West Coast.
Well, it is West Coast because that was where they were. It's kind of like where Thunderbolts and Avengers would kind of overlap. It was taking villains that want to give themselves a second chance, as heroes. So they seeded that down, and so in the next couple months we may get an announcement where they're going to have, a Thunderbolts version of Avengers or an Avengers version of Thunderbolts or something.
Okay.
So, if nothing else, you heard it here first.
Fair enough. And I'm kind of glad that the like you were saying last time, the whole Fall of X thing is kind of coming to an end because that was getting to be a very massive. It was all over the place. It was up into Iron Man. It was just so many places. Um, that being said, now it looks like the Blood Hunt's doing the same thing, but I don't think this is going to last near as long. So
No, well, and
I mean the Fall of X stuff. I mean, God, that's been on Iron Man for what 12, 13 issues maybe.
pretty much, yeah. Well, and the like, I was going to start picking up Iron Man. It was around issue 4 that Emma started popping up in there. And so I went back and I bought the first 3 issues because, OCD is a real thing.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad I did. I've got every issue, and it looks like issue 20 may either be the end of the series or the end of this take of it, and they'll go in a different direction afterwards.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I got in because there were enough little points that I needed to know for continuity wise to make the rest of the stuff to make sense.
Yeah.
But I will say that the current volume of Avengers I haven't been really digging on. That they keep going back to this, like, I'm the star, you're the icon, here's the god, here's the king, and they keep going back to these labels, and they're trying to do artsy mirroring and try to be creative and try to be highbrow, and it, to me, it doesn't feel right, doesn't feel natural. And the blood hunt issues has an ad hoc, thrown together team led by Captain America, Steve, not Sam. And honestly, those have been the best issues of Avengers. You don't even have to know who the characters are. It just feels more fun. The interactions are great, and it's more, let's just get in there, get our hands dirty, and do a job.
Well, it sounds like they're trying to name almost like the God stuff was, where it's like, so and so avatar of the god that is left of center off of,
Well, and in Blood Hunt number 3, I won't spoil anything, but Captain Marvel turns to Captain America and wants Captain America to do some talking, and he's like, "Well, you're the chairman of the group," and she's like, "Yes, but you're the icon," and she's actually using the label that they've been laying thick and heavy in the Avengers run, and it's like, who talks like that?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but yeah, that's an interesting one on that.
So, needless to say, once we get out of having company-wide events, maybe we can kind of settle down to something good. But for right now,
Well, and
just
the thing
push it
I've been
through.
noticing lately, going over to my uh, independent side, is I'm getting a lot of books lately where I'm getting them in, I'm reading them, I'm loving the book, and then when I get done with it and I'm trying to find out a little bit more information, I'm finding out they are based on a video game from like 2 years ago or from this last year or something like that. Um, oh God, I'm trying to remember the name of the one that I just.
Well, there was Cult of the Lamb. What was the other one?
Oh God, I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It's something about life, and I can't remember but basically, it's a bounty hunter that never talks. It has a talking gun, and apparently there's an entire video game of this one. So high on life.
High on Life.
Yep, high on life.
So is he high, and that's why the gun's talking?
Like if you look at the artwork, dude is probably tripping. However, that being said, it's just one of those kind of fun feel games. Like there's an episode of Rick and Morty where one of the basically time police show up and he has like a living weapon. And it feels like they kind of stole from that a little bit, but they took it like a whole lot of steps further. Like they made them sentient. They speak. They can do everything. Whereas the bounty hunter doesn't say anything, nor you know, really does much except for a little bit of body language.
Pull my trigger, make me
Yeah.
discharge.
Well, there's like a knife and stuff like that that talks, and it's like the what should be inanimate is not.
If Disney did G.I. Joe, like they do the Disney princesses, where you have
Yeah,
the
kind of like
animal
a
sidekick, like, hey, it's Grenade the Grenade. What do you have to say today?
well that or like kind of a Beauty and the Beast type thing.
Oh, there you go.
But like I said,
Makes you wonder
I'm
about the
starting to
toilet in
notice
that movie.
that there's a lot of video games that are coming out or have come out in the last like 4 or 5 years that I've completely missed off the radar that really feel like they're kickbacks to what we would have loved to have on our Ataris in the 80s. You know, so we're getting some fun storylines. We're getting like really just like High on Life is just high color, very very vivid imagery. It kind of makes you feel happy, even though you're using your talking gun to slay things. You know,
So you're sharing the hallucination.
basically you are kind of. Um, I'm at this point. I'm waiting to see what's next because I'm running out of time to try out these video games that I'm reading the comic books about, and now I gotta go try the games. And it seems like most of the time, what I'm reading when I find the information on it is a game that was released that initially didn't do that great that has now gained a cult following.
That almost seems like your MO right there, you know.
Yeah. Well, those are the ones that are getting the comic books released about
Right,
them.
but you know,
So yeah,
you don't strike me as the, hey, here's the big thing. I'm going to get into that. You're like,
the
what's
exception is Fallout.
what's the quiet little thing that's kind of off the grid that's a little out there?
Yeah.
That's the one I'm going to support.
But no, Fallout is the big exception to that, but I play it really weird. So I just build a lot of settlements and build some more settlements and
Fair enough. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to add then?
I can't think of anything. I think that next week's kind of a heavy week for you, I think, on the books as far as
Boy.
like yeah, yay. No, I think don't they start resetting the X-Men stuff a little bit next week?
Yep.
So
Well, and that's the thing is that the stuff that I've been reading is feast or famine. This week is kind of a little light for me, and of the stuff that came out, Iron Man was by far the one that jumped out me the most. There are some titles that I'm picking up because I don't want to fall behind, but I'm not necessarily enjoying Captain Marvel leading that one.
yeah. To be fair, independents were very much the same way. I was flipping through trying to get an idea what I was gonna read and had another box come in. I went ahead and finished opening the rest of the boxes and came across this one. I was like, there we go, that's done deal because they're just it's like you were saying, it seemed light as far as content this week.
Right.
Not even content as far as content's not quite the word I'm looking for as much as just
It's they're not regulating the output.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if an artist gets ahead or a writer falls behind, it's usually we get a whole bunch at the end of a month or at the very beginning of the following month, and then the middle week is usually where the people who are
it's
doing everything.
lackluster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But anyway, yep, that's all I've got on it. So
fair enough.
all right.
All right. Well then, tune in next time. Comment below if you have any questions, and we'll see you again from the Ark. Thank you, and have a good night.